Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. This is my podcast. Appreciate you being here as usual. First and foremost, if you're new to the show, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here. If you are a returning listener, thank you as always. If you have not, whether you're new or a returning guest, please take a second to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening or watching right now. If you are on Spotify or Apple, there is an opportunity for you to hit subscribe and leave a little review. 5 stars is greatly appreciated. If you're on YouTube right now, please click the subscribe button right below, hit like on the video, leave a couple of kind words in a comment, and that goes a long way to help try to fight the algorithm monster. And if you want to go one further, please share this episode with a fellow like-minded person that would enjoy this. I talk to all sorts of different people on here, and whoever's listening right now obviously is interested in learning the ins and outs of the businesses that make Pittsburgh what it is. So whether you are someone who is just listening from the point of this being a specific guest, you know about my guests, or whether you're someone that just listens to this as a kind of whole project, you know what I mean? I just specialize in talking to all these different businesses about the ins and outs of what they do. They come in here, they tell me their life's work. It's an incredible platform, if I do say so myself. Last week we sat down with Michael Studebaker of Studebaker Metals, which is accessory shop, I guess you can call it that. He specializes in jewelry, mainly hand-forged jewelry down on Smallman Street in the Strip. But, they've been around for 11 years. He's been doing this for a long, long time. That was a great conversation. The one before that was with Badama's Pizza, fantastic pizza spot in the city. One before that was Brillo Box, a fantastic venue in the city. So we got a lot of great people in the phone book that do a lot of great things for our city. And if you want to, try to spread the word, just share this on your social media, share it on your stories on Instagram and help bring new eyes to I'll Call You Right Back podcast. That gives me an opportunity to grow the show into something beyond what it is, and to hopefully, be able to, kind of make this a full-time thing to, be able to devote more time into what I'm doing with this show. Ultimately, that is the goal. And there is a couple of opportunities if you are a local business that is watching this episode or listening right now. If you are looking for a unique way to advertise your business to a diverse listener group, here's your chance. This is your opportunity right now. I'll Call You Right Back talks to all sorts of different people of all walks of life. We got venue owners, we got chefs, we got creatives, we got artists, we got musicians, and with each guest comes a group of listeners that are probably not, of the same crowd. It brings different people with how diverse the guest base is on I'll Call You Right Back. So if you're looking for a unique opportunity to bring your product or your business or your event some new eyes or ears, rather, this is your chance. So, I'm selling advertisement spots, which will, be conducted in the intros of each of these episodes, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And there's other opportunities for skip the line packages, basically. So 7.5 years I've been doing this podcast, and I have gained a lengthy list of potential guests. People hit me up all the time and they want to come on the podcast and talk about what they do. I have a list that I'm trying to get through that is, can only get through so many. So if you're looking to, get on the podcast and kind of jump to the front of the line and skip that list, there's an opportunity for that as well. You could find all this information on my website, I'llCallYouRightBack.com, under the services tab. You could talk about, or you could learn about, the sponsorship opportunities, the skip to the front of the line opportunities, and just some different opportunities to utilize what I'm doing with this podcast. It's something that I would like to, kind of get more active in this next year. So if you ever wanted to work with me, if you ever wanted to do something a little bit more unique that is beyond just doing a advertised post on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, now's your opportunity. So reach out. I'll call you right back at gmail.com. You can look on my website, I'llcallyourightback.com. I got all kinds of good stuff on there. I got some merchandise like this hat, like this t-shirt, all kinds of stuff. But beyond that, the reason that everyone is here this week, I sit down with a fantastic guest doing great things for the city. Michael Ploetz is a guy who started a bookstore in Carnegie pretty recently. He's been doing this. I think that they opened in October, if I'm correct. Yeah, October. Right in Carnegie, on Main Street, right across from Dagny's Eatery. And it's a small, quaint little bookshop that is going to be growing very soon. So I met Michael by going in there. I'm a reader. I went in there, and I loved what he did with the space that he had in his shop. And, I introduced myself, and I was just talking to him a little bit, trying to gauge, the type of person that he was and the type of reason that he, opened this bookshop. And he has a pretty cool story. And obviously I wanted to get him on the podcast and talk to him a little bit more. So after, I kind of shot my shot with him and had him come over and talk to me about what he's doing with Woolly Bear Books, he explained to me that he is moving, just a couple feet down the road, right on Main Street, to a very, very, large location that is probably quadruple the size that he's in right now. And I don't know, I love bookstores. Who doesn't love a good bookstore? Even if you're not a reader, it just has a great energy to it. And I was talking to Mike about, kind of why he started this and, what made him want to open his own spot. And it's a fantastic conversation. He comes into the studio, we sit down, we talk about, his life as a young kid and how reading, kind of grabbed him from an early age, what type of things, sparked creativity in his mind and kind of kept him engaged with reading as a young kid. And because it's fascinating for me because, I wasn't that kid whenever I was younger. I did not read books. So, to talk to someone who always kind of had a love for it is, pretty cool, especially now that I'm someone who kind of rips through some books. But we talk about that. We talk about his life and what he did before owning this bookshop. He worked in publishing for some of the big name companies out there, and kind of just what the ins and outs are about owning a bookshop. What do you have to do to prepare? What types of books are you getting in there? Why are you choosing what you're choosing? How many copies? How does it work? What are the logistics? All that good stuff. And it's a great conversation. Very excited for Woolly Bear Books to open. I believe it's April 26th. It's on Independent Book Day is the reopening. He's currently open right now, but April 26th will be the grand opening of the new and improved Woolly Bear Books, where he hopes to, kind of bring in a whole different crowd of people. He wants to do book readings in there and artists or book author, meetings and, all sorts of things like this. And with an expanded area that he's moving, with this bigger footprint that he has more opportunity to do so. And this week we talk all about it. So without further ado, episode 302 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Mike Ploetz of Woolly Bear Books.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. I'll call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Get immersed into the experience. So you've never done a podcast before. What's your your temperature on it?
I'm okay with it, actually. I used to have a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah?
And I do not mind hearing my voice because you'd have to edit video and deal with that.
What was the content that you did?
So it was part of BookTube, which is exactly what it sounds like. So before Book Talk, there was BookTube.
Ah.
And this was 2015 era was kind of when it was at its prime. And I was looking for a creative outlet and kind of just got sucked into that world. And it was really fun, but I'm sure much as you find, it's a lot of work. It's more work than you expect. And there's a constant, you seem like you have a pretty good handle on things, but at that point I found it hard to devote the time to keeping up that schedule. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you have video, it's like, the audio, I was doing this for like 5 years without any video.
Yeah.
And it was so much easier. But now that I edit video, it is like
it's a whole other layer,
bane of my existence, to be fair.
Yeah.
But you said BookTube. Now I'm intrigued by all this because I'm a very new reader.
Okay.
So growing up, I was like the kid who copied, who didn't read anything in school, Spark Notes, the whole deal. Never read a book.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, like 2.5 years ago, picked up a book and just never stopped. So
what got you into it?
I was on a work trip and I was like, I was always one of the types of people who would go into bookstores and just go in there and spend $100 and buy a stack of brand new books, and they would just come home and sit in a bag.
Okay.
Or they would sit on my bookshelf. I was a collector.
Yeah.
So I would collect books and just never really got around to reading them. And I always loved the idea of it.
Right.
Loved going into bookstores, loved the whole vibe of it all. But I was going on a work trip and went to the airport, bought a Mitch Albom book called the last, not the last passenger, but the last person on the lifeboat or something.
Okay.
I don't know. It was a book that came out, but the title is what grabbed me. Funny enough that I can't remember what it is.
Right.
But I read it and
people are different people at airports. You're more aspirational there.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, I'm gonna read magazines. I'm gonna learn about business. I'm gonna,
Yeah, that's true because that's exactly how I
it's
feel.
the only place you really have time to sit and think about where you want your life to go. And
Yeah, because I was on a layover.
Yeah.
So like I was on a layover and I was like, I could sit here on my phone and just start clicking away. But I was like, I'm going to just go buy a book. I'll read a book. You see another person and it's such like a, romantic type of like vibe, like sitting in an airport reading a book. So I bought that and I loved it. And then read that in like, 12 hours. And I was like, damn. It was pretty easy. I'll read another one. So I bought a book called City of Thieves by David Benioff, which was just like incredible. Just couldn't put it down, and I just kept going.
Nice.
And it was.
I think there's a book out there for everybody. Well, there's got to be a genre to keep you reading. So
yeah,
as soon as you find that,
you get hooked in.
You get hooked. Yeah.
You've always been a book person.
I have on and off. So my mom was a reading teacher. At the elementary school, and she I guess both my parents really encouraged it, and I've always been introverted, so that helps because unless I was forced to, I wasn't playing sports or getting out of the house or so my parents would just always take me to bookstores. Back then we had Walden Books at the mall. This is before Barnes & Noble, so we still had Borders, we had the retro stuff. So we would just take trips and, if I had a good report card, we'd go out to the bookstore, buy books. And I'd still tell people, I believe it's true that there are people naturally predisposed to enjoy reading just in the same sense that you might enjoy sports because it suits your skill set. But I think, like I was just saying, I think there's something out there for everybody. And I think getting into that as a kid makes it much easier to continue that lifelong in the same way that learning a language is a lot easier when you're a kid. So I was lucky enough to have that as a kid. And I've definitely gone through phases. I grew out of it once I went to high school and was more focused on, I guess, extracurriculars became a thing at that point. But also I was trying to be cool and not be the kid that, went home right after school and read every night. And then I got to college and I was looking for a distraction from studying, I guess, and got back into reading in my later college years. And that's when it really became a bigger part of my life because it's a hobby for most people. But I think when you're that age, and you're considering what you want to do for a living and you're like, wouldn't it be great to pick something that I love? that's when it kind of takes on a new light. So
I could agree with that. That's interesting. When you were younger, what type of stuff like grabbed you whenever you were a young kid?
I was pretty cliche. I wanted to be a veterinarian for a long time. Quiet kid loves animals. It's like I said, it's pretty cliche. And I always really enjoyed science, but at the same time, I always really wanted to be a writer. So I was figuring that out. Writing is a lot of work, and it requires. I'm a fairly lazy person, and I'm pretty hard on myself, but that's a point that I think holds true. I just think it takes a work ethic, and not to bring it back to sports because I don't know anything about sports, but you got to hone those skills, right? And you got to practice. And if it's an instrument, it's the same thing. If it's writing, it's the same thing. I do not have that control, that regimented control. So I realized I couldn't be a writer. So when it came time, I guess I'm jumping around. I know you like to get into people's
that's all right.
life stories here, but
yeah, that's all right.
When it came time to think about what I wanted to do, I was definitely looking for something creative. So I sort of made the decision to work in advertising or pursue like a degree related to advertising.
Yeah.
But ultimately, didn't really pursue that. Went into publishing instead. So
as a young kid, what type of stuff are you reading that kept you engaged?
I read. There's so much out there. So like, even looking beyond the Harry Potter of it all, because that definitely opened a window for me.
Oh my God, I'm in it right now. I just finished The Half-Blooded Prince today.
Yeah.
And I've seen the movies a million times, but I've had FOMO of the books, and that's why I came into your store the other day.
Was to get Harry Potter?
I wanted to get the illustrated hardback copies and just add them to the collection, but I literally just finished The Half-Blooded Prince today, and just I could not even fathom reading that as like a teen,
Yeah.
like that world.
Well, I was 10 when the first book came out.
How old are you now?
I have to think for 24. 24, 34.
34. I was going to say.
I was off by a decade.
Yeah,
you
so
look terrible for 24.
We're the same age. All right, I'm 34.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had the first Harry Potter book in fourth grade, and I carried it around and I like read a couple pages of it, but I just never got into it. And then obviously the movies came out, and I'm more of a cinephile. Like I watch 1,000 movies, but just never read anything. And you always hear like, the books are always better. And as I became a reader, I was like, I just got to cross them off this list. I set a goal for myself this year to read 30 books. Last year I read like 23, which like was insane for me. I just would never imagine it. So I was like, I'm going to just say, screw it, and check off all the Harry Potters first. So, I just read The Half-Blooded Prince, finished it today, and I immediately picked up Deathly Hallows, and I'm just like, I'm in the thick of it. I'm almost like so sad for it to be over.
Yeah.
Even though I know the whole premise of it all because I've seen the movies, but like the books are a completely different world.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much more detail. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
I think it's probably one of the main cultural phenomenon that we'll ever experience. That and Game of Thrones are probably the two biggest.
Yeah, and it sucks she's such a piece of shit.
Okay, thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
I
No.
wasn't sure what.
You gotta call the elephant out in the room. But it's like, it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
That she's such a piece of shit.
That's why I don't have. I have the paperbacks, but that's why I don't have the hardcovers.
And that's understandable. It's crazy because it's such like a big cultural phenomenon, and you're like, in the later years, you're like, Jesus, like how could this even be? But because of how great like that world is that was just like created. Yeah. But that's a whole.
I'm sure as a movie lover, you've come across this before with you've heard of separating the art from the artist before, and J.K. Rowling is not the first shitty author to exist. I mean, Neil Gaiman has allegations against him right now. Orson Scott Card, who wrote Ender's Game, classic sci-fi book, was notoriously homophobic, and H.P. Lovecraft was a racist.
It's crazy.
And there's arguments to be made that some of these people were a quote-unquote product of their time. But at the end of the day, we live in a different cultural context now. And as a bookstore owner, I mean, I've owned a bookstore for 4 months, so I'm still exploring, what I owe my community, and in terms of giving them access to books that I believe are fundamentally good for humanity. But I think there's also an aspect of if you don't want to read it, you don't have to read it. But I might still carry it because I feel like that's an experience that kids deserve to have.
Oh my God. I can't believe I didn't read it whenever I was younger.
I know. And just for the sake of supporting reading in kids and making sure they have access to the best stories out there. Cause I think, there's plenty of stuff besides Harry Potter, but, I don't know what I'm saying.
That's all right. That's all right. Let's rewind a little bit because we're getting into you already being a bookstore owner, but I kind of want to know, you said you were introverted growing up, but was it were you reading a lot, all the time?
Yep.
And what did you normally gravitate towards? Besides Harry Potter, were you a sci-fi? Were you stuff like that?
I didn't really come across a lot of sci-fi that spoke to me as a kid. I read a lot of classics like The Phantom Tollbooth. I don't know if you've read that before. Mm-mm. Okay. I might list a lot of books that you haven't heard of.
That's all right. I love it.
I was really into Roald Dahl, so I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but there's 15 other ones.
Yep.
I was really into an author named Eva Ibbotson who wrote just short little fun fantasy stories about different topics, different mermaids and things like that. And then I feel like Diana Wynne Jones was another favorite author of mine. She wrote Howl's Moving Castle, which you've probably watched the Studio Ghibli movie, right?
Yeah.
So she wrote the book that movie was based on.
Okay.
30, 40 years ago. So just stuff like that. And then, I don't know. I kind of really, there's so many books out there that
I know it's insane.
You're never going to run out of stuff to read.
It's so overwhelming for me now because my to be read list is I have 500 plus books on there, and it literally gives me anxiety to think of all these books that I want to read that I just can't make it through.
It's gotten a lot worse because this was before social media. So I was reading books I found at the bookstore or I found at the library.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about next is you the books that you came across that you enjoyed, were these books that your mother was kind of feeding to you, or were you just a library kid like the Page Master where you were just walking around?
Yeah, they I guess I didn't find that much stuff in my library. I went to a small town school, so Where
are you from?
I'm from outside of Buffalo, so I'm from a town called Springville, New York. The one thing I remember getting from the library was Dr. Dolittle, animals,
right up your alley.
Was a great story, But other than that, I think my parents discovered pretty early on that if they gave me something, I wouldn't read it. Yeah, because you're just a kid.
Yeah, you're rebelling.
Yeah.
What did they like?
What did they like? My dad reads nonfiction exclusively.
Okay. I haven't read any nonfiction, I don't think ever.
I've gotten into nonfiction a lot in recent years, but I do not read what he reads a lot of war history, World War II is almost all Oppenheimer he's obsessed with, has been for years. It's not part of the hype. He used to work for Westinghouse and had involvement in nuclear energy. So that's why. Yeah. And he's a nuclear engineer. So, that's where that goes in. My mom would read, she read a lot of romances, and she was also into Westerns. So she read...
Lonesome Dove is right on my list to
I don't know if she ever read that, but she's
considered to be one of the best ever. Okay.
And then I think Gone with the Wind was one of her favorite books growing up. So
my mother, growing up, my mother, was a high level employee at PNC, was just worked a crazy amount of time, but her downtime, she would just rip through books. If we would go on vacation, she would bring a giant Eagle bag filled with these these thrift store romance, Danielle Steele, this garbage type of reading.
Yeah.
And
Well, we don't label.
I'm sorry, but like you know how people say trash TV, you know, almost like reality type.
It's like popcorn or
Yeah, exactly. It's just easy, brainless reading that you could just rip through.
Oh yeah.
Sorry for calling it garbage.
Well,
but
my mom definitely read that. I mean, she and her mom would swap books, and
But my mother would like read all this, and like I never really like understood her love for it. I'm just like, how could you just like read these like 700-page novels in like a day or two? And now I kind of like understand it. It's like just a great way to get away. But yeah, it's cool that that was something that kind of grabbed you from a young age. Now, what else were you into besides books? Like, were you a movie person too?
No, I wouldn't say so. I was a video game kid.
Oh, okay.
So I played a lot of video games. I still do.
Yeah.
So I had N64 was our first console, and then am I losing you here?
No.
Okay.
No, that was my first console.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we had a Nintendo, but yeah, I'm an N64 guy.
And then we got PlayStation 2.
So you were like heavy into video games.
Yeah, I was always part of the
What did you love?
ecosystem. My favorite game growing up was Banjo-Kazooie.
Okay, yeah, I'm hip.
There you go.
Yeah,
any of the games where you just collectathons is what they call them, right?
Yeah.
Still hits my brain the same way.
That's cool.
I just really enjoy it.
I kind of never I never really got like bit by that bug. I loved random shit like Tony Hawk, 1080 snowboarding, but then I would also play like Zelda on N64. But I think that my biggest detriment to video games is my brother was 6 years older than me, so he would just like destroy me in every video game, which kind of like turned me off from it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. A lot of my childhood was just like movies. But you growing up and like kind of getting into like high school, we were kind of talking about how you approached life after high school. What made you want to like kind of go the advertising route?
So let's see. I'll paint you a picture, because I said I went to a small town school, and
like how many people did you graduate with?
probably 70.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
That's not a lot, right?
Mine's like 230.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like crazy, but that's definitely smaller. Like,
It's small, yeah. And I was top of my class and did not feel challenged or seen or appreciated, and was just over where I grew up. So anyway, the time came to pick colleges, and I knew I didn't want to go anywhere super close to home. UB, University of Buffalo, was the main school near me, and we were looking at colleges in DC, and then we came down to Pittsburgh to look at a few. And there was so when I was growing up, there was a show called Queer as Folk. I don't know if you've heard of this show before. You have?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, that was like a really strong outlet to, you talk about a world you want to live in, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to live in the world that I saw in that show, because it was kind of the first time that I saw that on TV. Gay people just really weren't, shown a lot on TV. And that show, although it's filmed in Canada, takes place in Pittsburgh. So
does it really?
Yeah.
I know of the show. I didn't know that it took place here.
Yeah, well, it's completely made up.
Yeah, that's all right, though. That's cool
in Toronto, I think, but one of the characters is an advertising professional, and so I kind of got sucked into this fantasy of like moving to Pittsburgh, becoming an advertising professional.
Wow.
And obviously I got here and I realized immediately, this is a lie. This city is nothing like what I just saw. But still, there's a certain part of you that's like, maybe I can have a piece of that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to business school, but there isn't actually an advertising major at business school. So I was on the marketing track, and then I became which is closely tied to advertising. And then I just became a general management.
What school?
Major. Pitt.
Oh, you went to Pitt. Okay.
Yeah. So
have you traveled down here before? Like, were you frequenting Pittsburgh before that?
No, I had never been down here. I came with my parents to look at Pitt.
Okay.
And we did one of their, student walkthroughs, and just thought it was a really cool place.
Yeah, it's very unique to hear other people who are not like from the city, you know, who moved here and have spent time here, like what kind of brought them here, what appealed to them in the beginning, and if I think that a lot of people that live here might take it for granted as far as like, you know, how great the city is in regards to like the size, where it's like an approachable size, where it's not like, you know, overwhelming like a California or a New York.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's cool that it's always cool to hear people that are like, yeah, it was a cool city. That's what made me want to come here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I loved it at all points of my life, but I have come to really appreciate it. I mean, I moved to New York City for about 5 years between 2016 and 2021. Mm-hmm. This was like right around COVID. And that's because I was working in publishing, and New York City's pretty much the only place you can do that.
Is that what you wanted to do from school? Like, is that like
no?
a perfect world from school?
Let's fill in the gap there. Yeah. So, after college, I would say I never really connected with my fellow business majors. I felt like they were all money motivated, power motivated, prestige.
And in that moment, like, where's your mind at? Like, of what you wanted to do in a perfect world?
Still figuring it out, but starting my junior year of college, I had started to work at a store in Shadyside called Kards Unlimited.
Yeah.
Which has been around forever. We're the same age, so
yeah,
you probably know a lot of it. I guess I'm learning that.
That's good.
Yeah. So that was a place that a friend of mine had kind of turned me on to, and she said, "Hey, I want to take you to this cool shop I found." So we went in there, and I don't know if it was that day or I went back maybe a week later or whatever, and they had a hiring sign. And so this was my second job. I'd worked at a coffee shop during high school, but needed a summer job and applied and got hired and was working there and kind of just hung around for like 7 years, I guess. So I was still there after I graduated from college, and the owner and I were kind of figuring out like where I fit in. And there were moments where she and I discussed me taking over the store from her, because she was at that point already considering retirement and she wanted to pass the torch to somebody. And it was pretty clear that this was something that I was interested in and, you know, pretty skilled at, and not all aspects of it, but there were a lot of things I liked about running a store like that. So she and I talked and kind of had a plan in place, but at the same time, I was considering working in publishing, and I had a friend that moved to New York City. This might have been like 2014, and he did a sort of like a crash course publishing program at NYU. It's like a 2-month-long program designed to give you a taste of what the publishing world is and get you a foot in the door, because it is pretty hard, especially I didn't have an English, background. It's pretty hard to get your foot in the door. So he was doing that. And I started to think like, well, man, I wish I could do that. Like, do I really want to be stuck in Pittsburgh forever? Like, is this where I see myself landing? And I think up until that point, I kind of imagined Pittsburgh as a stepping stone. And I think the city is a good size, but I think you only appreciate that, at least from my perspective, once you've experienced something that you can't handle.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was still at this point where I wanted something more. And so, the owner of the bookstore said, well, I think you should go out there and sow your oats, because if you don't, you're always going to be, there's going to be a part of you that's regretful and, resentful if you don't take that opportunity. So I ended up applying to the same NYU program that my friend did, and I got into that, and that's how I got my foot in the door and moved to New York City and worked in publishing for six or so years.
And what were you doing? Like, I feel like it's a broad term, publishing.
Yeah, so I just don't know how much you want to dig into this, but I guess we've got a long time to
That's
chat.
all right. I'll divert you if I feel that it's going too into the weeds.
My first job in publishing was at a small publisher called Little Bee Books, B like Bumblebee, and it's just like a small, almost like boutique publisher, I guess you could say. They publish children's books. But they're not the size of like Penguin Random House, which is the largest, where I ended up working after that. But Little Bee was a really like eye-opening first job. I was actually the assistant for the CEO of the company. There were maybe like 30 to 40 employees, so I was reporting directly to her. And my job wasn't dissimilar to Anne Hathaway's job in The Devil Wears Prada, but it wasn't exactly like that either, because it wasn't that outrageous. But there were times where I was getting lunch or running errands or picking things up or going to her apartment to get things for her. But there was also just a lot of filling in roles wherever she needed. So I was like the office manager at times. I was a sales assistant at times, social media manager at times. So it was a good first job because it really allowed me to get a taste of different, different departments of publishing.
Yeah.
And, but again, I had been interested in marketing for a hot sec. So she allowed me the chance to work with the marketing team and get my hands on some of the work that they were doing and help out with their campaigns. So I had the assistant job for about 2 years, and at that point transitioned into my first marketing job at the same company. And then I did that for maybe like another year. And then I moved to my next job at Penguin Random House, where I was a marketing manager. And
now, is that you like going around, trying to sell books to bookstores?
No, because that would be more of the sales side of things.
Okay, yeah.
So marketing managers, the job has changed, as many jobs have over the last couple of decades. It's mostly digital now. But at the same time, you're also going to national shows. So we would go to Texas a lot because there's a huge school market down there. We would go to the West Coast every so often. We'd go to Pittsburgh a couple times, and there you would talk to booksellers and I guess essentially step into the sales role there, but also sometimes you'd have just a booth set up and you'd have the books displayed and people would come up and talk to you.
Like showcasing new books that are coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So that was part of the job, but then a lot of the job was sending out digital newsletters and working on social media, working on advertising. And we also plugged into Amazon a ton.
Yeah.
So because that's kind of that's the real elephant in the room is how much publishers rely on Amazon.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of money was thrown their way for sure.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I mean, I feel like that, that's an assumption now that's like, the big thing that you got to deal with as any small business, really.
Yeah.
It's hard to compete with convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whenever you're like, doing marketing for them and, kind of walking down that path a little bit deeper, are you enjoying it? Do you enjoy it at that point, or is it kind of like revealing things that you don't like about the business?
I enjoyed parts of it, but and I guess I really thought that I think where I thought that I would plug into it the best was with creativity, and because I kind of had a little bit of an artistic background, I had this like writing, literature background, so I thought those skills would be very well suited for marketing, right? But the problem is you're writing from the brand's perspective, and with something as buttoned up as the book world, it can be pretty stifling. And so there were many times where, for better or for worse, like every brand has its voice.
Yeah.
Most publishing companies aren't exactly that daring, with their ad campaigns. But there were many times where I would butt up against people who had been there longer, who said, that's just not how we do things, or that's not how you should put it, or there's a way to say this. And sometimes I agreed. But many times I would just think that's boring. Like, if you want to get people's attention, don't say the same thing for the 100th time.
Where it's like the mentality of these people that have been in there forever is just like fall in line and, do the work.
Kind of. I mean, I'm not going to get on here and talk shit about anyone I worked with, because
I'm not asking you to do that. Just for the record.
Just in case any of them are listening or come across this at some point down the road. I highly value the experience of working with everyone that I worked with, and even if I didn't like specific people at specific points. I'm sure I still learn stuff from them.
Absolutely. Regardless of
Yeah.
what you like about it or not, I'm sure every position that you've taken, even the one where you were kind of like Anne Hathaway, it's like you're gaining these like, you know, different experiences that you could apply to your life.
Yeah.
That probably, you know, to your advantage, it kind of opens your eyes a little bit more than to someone who just has a perfect job, necessarily perfect in air quotes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But I also think that like whenever you say like, oh yeah, I worked at Penguin Random House, I would imagine because that's such a big company that there's not a lot of room for like, you know, input from like, you know, the guy low on the totem pole that is like, oh, I'm young and ambitious and I want to like do some things and like inject some like, you know, new blood into things.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things here. So number one, I was working for the company Penguin Random House is split up into a ton of other divisions or imprints. And I worked for a division called DK Books, which publishes nonfiction for kids and adults. And we were kind of had our own structure. So my team maybe had like 10 people on it at its largest. So it's not that I didn't have the chance to get my hands dirty per se, but it is all of publishing, no matter where you are, is very it's very much on a ladder. And I know a lot of industries are like this, but publishing I found is so bad for this, where it's like you got to put in your time and then you'll get that bump. So it's the same if you're an editor. You start out as editorial assistant and then work your way up the various rungs. And I guess maybe I thought I could skip some of that by not doing editorial and doing marketing instead, but it's the same thing over there.
Yeah.
You're a marketing assistant, then you're an associate marketing manager, senior, like it's the same all the way up. And a lot of people, again, this is probably the same across industries, but a lot of people get ahead by skip the rungs by moving jobs, moving companies. So you would work for Penguin and then go work for Simon & Schuster, work for HarperCollins, wherever. And you just bounce around. And I just thought that seemed like a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
And I also kind of felt like I feel like that's not how the system should work. Like if you're you're on your team and you're putting in the effort and you're making, you know, you're doing as much as you can within your job description and then some. Like
you would hope that would be.
You would hope, but it's a numbers game, and it's you know, I was also in the position where I wasn't working in the city anymore because I had already moved back to Pittsburgh, and 2021.
Yeah.
So I was working remotely, and a lot of publishers were fully remote at one point, but then again, I think this happened everywhere. Like people just gradually started rescinding that work from home status, and then you'd have to go back one day and then 2 days. So I think where they're at now is you're supposed to do like 40 hours a month or something, and that was never required of me, but I kind of got the message that if I wanted to get ahead, I'd have to move back. And certainly if I wanted to get a job at another publisher and skip the rungs, like I said, I'd have to be in the city. So
what made you come back to Pittsburgh?
I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and it was really tough to live in a 1-bedroom apartment, both working from home.
You mean in New York? You were
in New York?
Okay,
yeah. Just I'm painting you that picture again. And I had an insane neighbor who definitely needed some sort of help and was not getting it. Screaming through the walls, all sorts of wild stuff. So I felt very restricted and very claustrophobic, and that probably kind of helped facilitate the end of that relationship. So I moved back and back to Pittsburgh because I was just looking for something a little slower paced and something where I could kind of spread out and not feel so. I was so anxious by that point. And New York kind of did a number on me.
I would imagine. I feel like I couldn't.
It was magical in some ways, but
you lived in the city?
I lived in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so it's probably crazy.
I moved all around Brooklyn, and that's pretty much where I was the whole time. But yeah, I was just on edge all the time, and it got worse when you're cooped up and there's like no outlet. And I would go to the park, during the summer of 2020, and that was kind of the only time I ever felt normal.
Yeah.
And I remember I still had very good friends from college who were living in Pittsburgh, and I just remember the feeling of like visiting Pittsburgh, because I had probably gotten there a couple times a year since I had moved away, and it's so cliche, but it felt like you're coming home. And it didn't matter how long I was away or how long I lived in New York. I did not feel the same living there as I did just spending a single day in Pittsburgh. It just felt like the right place to be, and it felt it felt like the right size city too.
It's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was probably also looking for something that was a little more comfortable and a little more familiar. Yeah, because there's just a lot of uncertainty in New York. So I moved back to Pittsburgh, and like I said, was still working that publishing job. But
when does the idea? Sorry to cut you off. I cut people off a lot.
I mean,
when does the idea of you wanting to, have your own bookstore come into play? Like, was that something that started, a couple years before this, or is that something that kind of like came out of nowhere?
No, that had been in my mind since working at that other store in Shadyside. Yeah. So since 2010, when I first started working there, and I was like, man, this is something that I could see myself doing. And I mean, that was part of it too. Like, that feeling never really went away. And, this, for the same reason that I felt like moving back to Pittsburgh was the right thing, part of me was like, maybe doing this for a living could be the right thing, because I still have not stopped thinking about it.
Now, at this point, are you reading a lot still?
No. New York also kind of destroyed that, or
Yeah, I know that was. I could imagine. I wouldn't imagine you're just like, yeah, I'm just reading all the time.
I would like to be one of those people that could read on the subway, because there is a lot of time to kill. But honestly, as soon as I got a Nintendo Switch, I was like, this is the way that I tune out and like keep my sanity. Because I'm
not a video game guy, but I've been thinking about getting one. Real bad. I've been thinking about it.
Well, you should hold out for the Switch too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I wasn't reading very much, so that was the other frustrating thing. But I moved back here, and I actually moved to Walnut Street. So I was living in Shadyside, like 2 or 3 doors down from where I had worked during college. Mm-hmm. So it was a very full circle type of, like, almost in an unhealthy way. And I kept saying that to myself. I was like, is this mature to like move back to Shadyside, or is this kind of just like moving back into your parents' house without moving back into your parents' house, But I was able to get my own apartment above one of the art galleries, and I was like, no, like this is what it's like to be in your 30s. Like, this is awesome. I get to work from home, never have to leave my apartment. I live by myself. I don't have a neighbor screaming next to me. Like, yeah, Jam on Walnut happens once or twice a month, but like, I'll survive, Yeah. So all in all, that was like a really amazing experience. And I was still talking to the woman who took over the bookstore, because the owner ended up selling to somebody else who'd been there for longer than me even. And so I helped out at the store during the holiday season, because it gets insane over there. And the new owner and I were kind of talking about like maybe working together, like maybe making something happen. And like neither of us knew what shape that would take necessarily. But at the same time, I also had this drive to create something of my own, because I think the biggest downside of taking over a business that's been there for 40 years, and this is kind of the same thing that I felt working for publishing and working on the marketing team and feeling restricted in what I could say. I feel like taking over a brand that is that old, you're a little restricted in what you can do with it, because if you change too much, people are going to be like, this is not the shop that I knew.
Yeah, exactly. It's already a speeding train.
Yeah, and if you go into it now, like the new owner has made changes. She's brought in new companies. She's painted things, rearranged things, but it's essentially the same. It feels the same.
Yeah. And
I just never felt like I could do that. I could pay that respect to the company, to the brand. So I just started playing around with ideas, and I would ask people, and like, every time I went home to talk to my parents, I'd be like, guys, like, I really feel like I could do this, and they'd been hearing me say this for years. And, I think I got to the point where people thought I would never do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point where I knew I had to do it, because I was like,
Talking about it all the time.
I can't be one of those people that doesn't, because I am lazy in certain respects, but I'm like, this is different. Like, this is a big thing that could really change my life and like really add something that has been missing from all the jobs that I've, worked at. So kind of just started looking into it, and actually I was hanging out on Main Street in Carnegie more and started talking to Dagny, and Dagny was the one who told me that there was that space available. And so I called them up, and everything happened like very easily and very quickly, and things just started falling into place. And I was like, I guess this is happening. Like,
I was just going to say, like, what's like the first step? First of all, shout out to Dagny's Eatery in Carnegie. Wonderful person, woman-owned business. If you guys want some good food, go pop over there. I love her.
Yeah.
Now, what's like your first step to, even approaching opening a bookstore? Obviously, you get your space. You find a space that will, be where you're going to be. But I mean, like, how do you do it?
It already feels so long ago, which is crazy. But
when did it open?
I opened on Halloween last year. So I really didn't have anything in motion until around the end of August. Like, I hadn't done anything until the end of August. But that's right after that I signed my lease. You have to set up your business in whichever structure you want. So I have an LLC.
Yeah.
You have to get your sales license. And then there's a website, your social media handles.
Yeah. Now, forgive me whenever I say what's the first step. I get that. But I mean, like, as far as like your mentality on what type of bookstore you wanted to recreate, like, or you wanted to not recreate, but create yourself. It's like, I feel like that there's different avenues that you could take. Like, you could be, a bookstore marketed towards like adults, really. But, you have a great variety of a lot of different things. There's a lot of like, books of all ages.
Yeah. Well, I won't lie. I borrowed or copied a lot from Kards Unlimited, because having worked there for so long, I know what works.
Yeah.
For our Pittsburgh market, I know what books were popular. I know what brands they carried that people liked. Even the products within those brands that sold the fastest. So to me, that's a huge leg up. But people, over the years of working there, people would come in and they'd say, we really like your book selection. So I kind of got in my head, like, they have a really good spread, because it's a lot of the classics. It's some of the overlooked stuff, but there's stuff for every age. So a lot of, what we sold at that store is the same stuff that I carry, but I also sprinkled in, more of the genres that I was familiar with. So one of my particular passions, and what we talked about when you stopped in the shop a couple weeks ago, was environmental science and nature writing and gardening. And so I, as you know, I have limited space in the current setup, but I've really tried to bring in as many books on that topic as I can, because I think, if you want to talk about like what type of bookstore you want to be, I feel like that's where I fit a specific niche, is a lot of the science stuff that I bring in for kids, and then a lot of the nature stuff that I have for kids and adults. So, I try to have a balance, and also I try to listen to my customers, because that's how you're going to stay in business. So I opened with the books that I thought I would sell, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been hearing from a lot of customers that they want romance and romantasy, are like the two things that
really
are flying off.
Is that like fourth wing? Romantasy?
Romantasy is like fourth wing.
Yeah.
Romance is like...
I have FOMO about that. I see so many people talk about it, and I feel like I have to eventually read that.
But you also got to... I think we're at the point in our lives where we can say, that's nice, but that's not for me, right?
Is it?
But you should try it. Sure.
We'll see how it goes. Have you read it?
No, I haven't read it. I'm not reading that much anymore. And
yeah.
I'm also halfway through the latest Brandon Sanderson, which is 1,200 pages.
He's another one that I've been hearing about, Brandon Sando.
Yeah, but that's going to shave a couple years off your life.
I know. That's what I hear. So let me ask you this randomly. So you found this space that you have, and it is a limited area that you have.
Yeah.
Now, was that like intentional in the beginning, or was that just what was available? Like, did you have an idea that you wanted to be just like kind of a smaller bookstore?
I kind of just wanted to get it done as fast as I could because I was coming up to Halloween, and I knew that Q4 was going to be very important because, again, having bookstore experience, the store makes so much more money during the holiday season and that's how it sustains itself through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to open as quickly as possible. That space was, I guess I really wasn't thinking about the size, or I thought it was bigger, but then once you bring in all the furniture that you need, you realize, like, I had ideas I really love a themed table display. So I had ideas for like maybe a dozen themes that I was like positive. I was like, I'll start there and then I'll see what I have room for. I had room for maybe like 2 themes. So I just, in practice, I had much less space than I thought I was going to have. But at the same time, the advantage is, you don't need to spend quite as much money in inventory.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Like, you started out small, so it's like,
But at the same time, because I've been to shops of a similar size, and they have a tenth of what I have. And
you packed a good bit in there.
And it still works for them. But I was like, again, and this is like the DNA of having worked for Kards Unlimited, which is also known for cramming things in every little cranny. I was like, this is what I like. I like people looking in one spot and then their eyes shift 2 degrees to the right and there's something else to look at. Like, I just really like that feeling of special things tucked away everywhere. So, I didn't go out of my way looking for a shop of that size. I did look at a couple other spaces that were going to be quite a bit larger, but
where at could it have been?
There was one storefront in Heidelberg on what is that, Washington Pike, I guess. Yeah. That that red. It looks like it used to be a garage or something.
I think I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that had a for rent sign up, and I was like, how cool would that be to just have like books in this like garage type setting? But I think they'd already booked it or leased it out to somebody else. And then I was also looking randomly in Canonsburg. There was this like another like warehouse style setup.
Okay.
But yeah, when Dagny told me about this space in Carnegie, I was like, okay, of course I'd love to go work 2 miles down the road from where I live. Like, this is very convenient. Plus, we had spent a little more time in the area, and we're like, yeah, I want to contribute to the makeup of Main Street, to the feeling of Main Street. So
yeah,
it kind of just felt like the right place to be, and it happened that maybe like 2 weeks into actually running the store there, so maybe probably November, that other building that I'm going to move into in a couple months here, that became available. So again, it was like another should I do this type of thing, and as soon as I saw it,
it's a sick building. So you being able to have that opportunity to just move literally where you could walk boxes, over there is pretty great.
Yes.
So you were only open for a couple weeks before that started to be put into motion?
Pretty much. And
was that overwhelming to you?
Yeah. And it definitely felt like it could be a misstep. But at the end of the day, I have a year lease at my original place and I have a year lease at the new place. So I said, if I'm out a year's lease, it's not the end of the world. We tried it. But I don't feel like that's going to happen. I mean, I had the confidence to act on it because I had a couple of really strong weeks under my belt. Obviously, opening a new store, you have the enthusiasm of the public coming to find your store for the first time. But I don't know. I'm learning more about risk taking, and I'm learning that I'm a pretty significant risk taker, and
you got to be. Scared money don't make money.
I feel like you got to put yourself out there to let the opportunities come to you.
I also feel like that, like, your spot is cool, and it's like this nice, like, cute little like bookstore that you would like, it's almost like movie-esque. You walk in and it's just a nice little like spot, but I feel like you can't really grow that much in there. So the new spot that you're in, that you're moving to, you got some room to grow.
Yeah.
Like you can't host a book club
Yes.
in the space that you're in right now.
Can we also put the timeline on here? Because I don't know when you're going to upload this.
This will be probably a few weeks, 4 weeks maybe.
Okay. So
around there.
the grand reopening date is April 26th.
April 26th. I'm gonna try. I'll make this. I'll make this for a couple weeks before that.
Okay, that's fine. Whenever works for you. Just in case people listen to this at some
No.
point.
That's. I'm glad you said that. April 26th.
What was your question? Sorry.
I was saying that you can't really you don't really have a lot of room to grow in the current area that you're in because it's just like a kind of a small little spot.
Yeah, that's the goal with a new place, is to settle in and really make it my own, and also have it, because we don't have that many third places in Carnegie. We've got Carnegie Coffee Company. I mean, I couldn't think of anywhere else I would just hang out with people. So I think it's important to be available for the community in that way. So whether it's having a space for book clubs, and I've told people before, if you have a craft group, I want there to be space for you. Whatever your interest, this is kind of what bookstores are supposed to be in the 21st century, because it's kind of just part of the shift back to physical retail, right? Is people miss the shopping experience. I was just thinking over the weekend of how I miss going to the mall. And I know not everybody likes to shop.
Yeah.
But you don't go to the mall to shop.
100%. I completely understand what you're talking about. Back in high school, it was that was our third space.
Right.
Go there whether you bought stuff or not. More often than not, you didn't buy anything. You were just there. But
and I get young people in the store.
Sucks now.
Young people who are in their 20s. And they'll go into the little book room and they'll just pull out every book and say to their friend oh, I've read that one. Have you read that one? Oh, that's a good one. I hated that one, whatever. And they won't buy anything, and that's not a problem, but they're just going to have a place to interact, hang out. So,
how do you approach that though? Because I feel like that is also another elephant in the room. To be a retail space that's selling books, whenever you have these huge corporations like Amazon, where you can get a book delivered to your room or to your doorstep literally the next day. How do you approach that to make it, a successful? How do you approach it to make it a success?
So I think the majority of my customers at this point know that they're not going to find the same prices at my store as they would find at Amazon. I think this was probably a worse problem 15 years ago when people were just starting to get on Amazon. They're like, wait, what? Why would I ever shop in person again? Now, the whole point is, yes, we know that products are available for less on Amazon, but what are you sacrificing in the process? What money are you funneling out of your community by not buying locally? You're not supporting local jobs. You're not, you know what the downsides are.
And that's why I asked you that as a loaded question, just because that's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, there are the good and the bad of it is I think the majority of people understand that local economy supersedes supporting these large corporations, but also the practice is, I buy stuff on Amazon too because I need supplies for my business. People are still going to go to Amazon, and it's harder to phase it out of our lives because we've given it so much control and so much power.
Yeah,
and we really have. It's the convenience. It's just like you say, and I know there's other aspects of our life where the same is true. We don't eat as well because other types of meals are more convenient. So I think it requires self-sacrifice, but I have a lot of really great customers who, go out of their way to support me, even though they know it's more expensive, because they understand the value of their dollar goes so much further when they shop locally. So
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's exactly what I'm getting at. It depends on the customer base.
I don't know. I dream about work a lot, so I don't know if this was a dream or if I overheard, because I can hear everything in the shop, which is another reason I want a bigger shop, because I'm tired of eavesdropping. I don't want to. It's just hard not to. Yeah, I guess I had a dream where somebody was like, why would I ever buy anything here when Amazon is cheaper? Like, but that does come up in real life too. And I see a lot of social media posts from other indie booksellers who say they see people take photos of books and then just like open the Amazon app on their phone and like purchase the book in store.
Yeah.
So it does happen, but I don't know if my customers are just really cool or if they're very sneaky about it. And I'm sure it'll come up at some point down the road, but yeah, it's tough. And I know that it kind of, I think reading should be accessible to everyone. I know books are expensive. Luckily, Pittsburgh has a really awesome library system. So there are ways for people to get books if you can't afford them. And if you do want to own books, we also have some very prestigious used bookstores in the South Hills. Just over in Dormont, we have Beyond Bedtime Books. Which,
great place. Tried to get her on her a couple times to talk about what she does. You know, back to like, you know, people going through like with the stores. I think one of the best parts about like, you know, shopping in an in-store experience is being able to it's to be able to what's the word? It's discover new things. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're on Amazon and I go look up, you know, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 17 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows come up. But if I go to your bookstore and I go to see if you have it, I go and I look around the shelves because it's an obvious that people are going to look around in the shelves while you're doing this shopping. You get an opportunity to discover these new things that you might not know about. Yeah. And I feel like that is what's lost whenever you're like shopping on Amazon and shopping on like these things like that, which, but I also think that it's like, it's an interesting way to think about people that choose to spend their money on things that are not as cheap per se that you can get online. I talked to another guy, Studebaker Metals. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, you had him on here. That's cool.
Yeah, I had him on here. And we talked about how like, you know, the older generation comes from a generation where it's like, you know, they're very tight with their money. You know, they want the best deal. They want to spend the littlest and get the most. Whereas we're in this generation now, like people your age and my age and, you know, his age, we realize the importance of reinvesting that extra couple dollars to be able to, you know, invest in the community that we love rather than just like, you know, going to Amazon about that. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get in hot water, but I think our parents' generation has gone through some major shifts. I think they've caused some, but I think they've also just been along for the ride. Like I remember my parents' furniture. My parents were very into antique wooden furniture. Mm-hmm. And I remember, you know, their parents are the same. Like they would buy nice stuff to last their lifetime, hopefully. You know, it was the same with clothes. It was the same with, I mean, not cars, obviously, but they always aimed to have the best that their money could buy because that was the most efficient use of their money. But I also see them get sucked into Amazon now and get sucked into, you know, little tchotchkes that they don't need.
Yeah.
And they're not as bad as some people that I know that have just gotten so used to the convenience of Amazon. But actually, maybe I can't even use them as an example because, yeah, sure, they haven't changed. No, I think my parents are in the right there. But I think some people, as these alternative modes become available, I mean, IKEA is now there, and maybe that's more of what we're used to. But I think we got sick of it. I think our generation got sick of it at a certain point because we grew up when fast fashion was just getting underway, right? H&M is the only place I shopped in college, and I highly regret that now. But people are still shopping at Shein. They're still shopping at I don't know. Temu is really popular now. And, you know, IKEA was the only place that we could afford furniture as kids. But I started to feel really shitty about that. And I think a lot of people kind of had that awakening at the same time. And I think it all feeds back into buying less, but making your money go further. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's kind of what you're saying. I don't know. I hope that we're heading in that direction, but yeah, at the same time, I'm not sure that people can really break their hold on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful thing. Like we said, it's very powerful to just, have that convenience.
And we've mentioned them like 30 times, and so
I know it's terrible.
Free advertising just gets.
I know,
stronger.
but it's like, but I feel like that, regardless of the advertising, no one, the couple thousand people that listen to this episode, they know about Amazon, but it's
but
more.
Now we're making them think about it every 2 minutes. Is my point.
Yeah, but we're thinking about it in a way on why it's important to choose to shop at a place like yours and be all right with spending a couple more dollars on a book, because that's one thing I did look. I wanted to see how your prices compared to, an Amazon book. Like specifically, whenever I was cleaning all this stuff up, like that Grady Hendrix book, yours is a few more dollars, but I understand that, with me going into your spot and purchasing a book, it's gonna, invest more into the community that's going to add more things.
Well, the other thing is we don't set book prices.
Yeah.
It is what the publisher says it is. And they make it that price because at full price, you're still able to make money as a bookstore.
Yeah.
But they charge you a fraction of that to get the book into your store in the first place. So that's how the system was made to work. Amazon broke the system because they're buying books in greater quantities at a lower cost, but they're selling them for less. So they're able to price out all these bookstores, despite all of us doing it the way that it's supposed to work out. So,
and that's interesting, and that's also a valuable thing to talk about on here. We just brought it up again, Amazon again, but that's how that system works. Is like they're such a big machine that they're buying things in such mass quantities that they can make these prices a little bit lower.
Books have also, I think this is true. Don't quote me on it, but I think books have been a loss leader for them, because they know that it brings a lot of people to their website. So they might lose money on them, but they don't care.
That's interesting. What are your thoughts, as far as, because I'm guilty of this as well. Actually, I'm kind of unique in this way because I'll buy my books on, I have Kindle Unlimited, but I'm a Kindle guy, and I read through there, but if I like books enough, I buy them too, just to have them on my bookshelf. But like, how do you compete with like the digital age? Like, do you see?
Actually, publishers have figured this out. I think I'm very confident. So there are special editions of books that come out all the time. I mean, they always have, they always will. Lately, the trend is, I'm sure you've seen sprayed edges. Yeah, that is the number one way publishers are getting people to buy physical books.
I just bought a Paul Tremblay book that is
even if
blood red edges.
There you go. I mean, I think they probably do that because this is what entices people to get a second or third copy of the same book. So maybe it's not your first copy, but they're doing it for the Hunger Games, they're doing it for Harry Potter, they're doing it for everything. So I think they've realized that people just really want to collect books, and they don't want any old book on their shelf. They want the prettiest copy that they can buy. So there are special editions, like so many coming out. Percy Jackson has a new hardcover coming out in the fall. Howl's Moving Castle, I mentioned, has a really fancy hardcover coming out. So I think that's how publishers are getting people to spend more money on books per se. But I think at the same time, print books aren't going anywhere, on the whole. I feel like people are still, I think people just don't want to be on screens anymore.
Yeah.
And that's probably not true for everybody, but that was one of the reasons I was excited not to have a desk job anymore.
Yeah.
I'm still on my computer a ton, obviously. I own a business, but I just didn't want to be tied to a screen.
I understand that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people will still.
Were you ever a Kindle person?
I've dabbled. The only thing I like about it is seeing a progress meter at the bottom of your screen.
Love it. I love it.
But then I'm paying more attention to that than I am to the page. So.
I turn mine off, but I like being able to just see where I'm at after a couple chapters.
The
but
percentage?
The lighted screen, though, is really what gets me.
I never had a lighted screen.
Oh, it's a game changer. Because if my wife is sleeping, I don't have to have my lamp on. I'm just like, ripping through a book. I don't read at night because I would fall asleep. That's understandable. I don't have that. It's interesting. Problem. It's interesting. Everyone has their own way of doing it. It's interesting. Now, I'm curious to know if you know about this. So why are some of the Kindle prices of books more than the physical price of books?
Well, give me an example.
Well,
like
there's just
a Kindle price is usually $10.
I would argue that it could go anywhere up to like $18, but it's some of them are, you can get a physical book for cheaper than a.
Well, I think the answer is because Amazon sets the price of physical formats. They can discount it however much they want. They do not set the price of ebooks. Publishers set the price of ebooks.
Very interesting.
There's actually a, I'm going to butcher this, but like a anti-monopoly lawsuit or something against the big publishers because of price fixing with ebooks. And I think it was, don't quote me on this.
That's
I don't
all
know.
right.
Amazon was involved, obviously, because they're the biggest market for ebooks. But yeah, I think the idea was like the publisher, when they sell an ebook, they're basically making pure profit. So it's not the same for a print book because there is a cost to print that book and ship it. Right?
That makes sense.
The ebook is just a file that they send your way.
Yeah.
So the money, I guess at one point Amazon tried to challenge them and say like we should be able to dictate that. I don't know. Look it up. It happened.
Hey, that's all right. You don't have to have an answer.
That's a partial answer to. Well, it is a partial answer.
That's a partial answer. Yeah, that makes sense because the author sets the price, or the publisher sets the price of the ebook file.
Yeah.
Because I always see that under it. Whenever you go to like get one of them, it says the publisher makes this price. But I guess I really didn't understand.
That's also probably to entice you to buy the physical book because again, Amazon I don't think takes that much money from ebook sales.
Okay.
Like I think that money goes to the publisher, but they would make money on the print sale. So
now, getting back into more of
let's stop talking about it.
I know. Getting back into more of Woolly Bear. Where does the name come from?
So, I really need to work on this elevator pitch, but I played around with a ton of nature-inspired themes and mascots, and ultimately I settled on Woolly Bear because I think the power of a mascot is real. I really wanted something that I could put a smiley face on. And I think one of the missions, going along with trying to get people more involved and more, interested in nature, I think that really starts from a young age. And caterpillars, woolly bears especially, are a little bit freaky, but I feel like it's one of those things that kids just really want to hold and like play with. And they're completely harmless, but they kind of look a little, spiky. And I just thought they were such a good symbol of everything that I'm trying to do at the store. So essentially that's why I picked it as the mascot.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like you intended that you felt like there had to be more into your answer than that.
There might be at one point. I don't know. I mean, yeah. We'll just leave it there. Sure.
It's good.
Okay.
Now, for you to, kind of create this environment into Woolly Bear books, you also, incorporate the, how would you call it? I don't want to say tchotchke type of things, but like gifts and cards, types of
knickknacks. You can say tchotchkes. I don't care. I mean, I recognize that I see people come in and get like goofily excited about a flying squirrel sticker.
Yeah, I love it. I love all
that.
That
is 100% something that you don't need, and so you can put it in that bucket. Like I'm not going to be offended, but at the same time, I think when you have that's also one of the goals of the shop is to have things that are inexpensive because you might come in there and say, I really want a book, but I don't want to spend $30 on a book. So let me look for something that's less expensive. So I intentionally set products that are much less than that, at various points throughout the shop. So you might look at one thing and say, that's too expensive, but the thing next to it might be $20 cheaper. Like I want there to be a mix of prices. So, that's part of how I go about curating, the selection. But at the same time, when you have products that are, inexpensive, oftentimes those are made overseas because that is how you keep the unit price so low on these items. So I don't feel super great about that, especially if one of the themes of the shop is supporting the environment, and then you have all these products that are not environmentally friendly. So, I won't say that none of my products come from overseas, but I'm intentionally trying to minimize that by sourcing things locally. So, a lot of the times I will also have local goods available for people to look at. The downside of that, and it's kind of the same thing as shopping at a bookstore instead of Amazon, is local goods are not going to be as cheap as stuff you find at Walmart.
Yeah.
Because real people made them, and real people need to make money off of these items, right? I have handmade soaps that are $12.
Yeah. You got cards from Commonwealth Press.
Cards from Commonwealth Press that are, actually I think those are only like $4.50, which isn't bad.
Yeah, but if you go to Walmart, you're getting a box of things. But you understand the reason that it is.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. It's a complicated situation, but
I feel like that as a business owner, you also have to bring in these things to supplement, what you're, trying to, build. You're trying to promote.
I mean, I need to make money, or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta call it as it is. You can't just be bashful about it. But it's like things that, but you do your due diligence of, just curating things in a way and being as intentional as you can in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, I have thousands of products in the store. So essentially, like, I bring them in because it's important to the mission, or because I might make money off of it, or because it's from a local company.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things that feed into that formula of why things are in the store. But obviously I'm the sole buyer right now, so I'm
glad you brought that up. How does one choose on what they could get? Like, do you just like approach a bookstore and they just have like a big ass website of books you can just choose from that you want to have in there?
From a publisher, you mean?
Yeah.
It's a little more chaotic than that, and I think it's just because I don't know how to go about it efficiently yet. But there are publisher catalogs that you can look at through the internet. There's a website called Edelweiss where publishers will upload all of their front list titles, so all the books coming out. And you can go through and browse their catalogs and bookmark them. And I think you can order directly through there, but I actually order through the publishers themselves. So you kind of get a sense of what's coming out. And then they'll also usually have lists of like their best-selling backlist titles. So that's where you'd find like Where the Sidewalk Ends, The Giving Tree, all the stuff that's going to sell until the end of time, So it is, that's kind of how you put your lists together, book-wise. But I find it a little daunting being the only person managing that list, because the book world can change pretty fast. I mean, a lot of times now it depends on trends on Book Talk, which, funnily enough, like added to the rebirth of bookstores, was because people were reading due to Book Talk. And so there's definitely stuff that I miss, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But
how do you determine like how many of each copy? Like obviously you know that like a Fourth Wing book, because it's so popular.
But is this really going to be interesting to people?
I mean, this is like literally what this podcast is to like kind of get into the weeds of these things.
I just don't want to be too boring about it. But
what do you think is exciting about it though? What let me ask you this. If you were to,
the most exciting thing about my job,
I want to know,
is when I buy something because I say this is going to sell. Like, this is something that people are really going to like, and then it does well, and then I sell out of it, and then I buy more and I sell those, So there are, I can think of a couple books that I brought in that I was very confident in, and they sell very well. And
are these books that are like
exciting,
notoriously popular on the internet?
No. Okay.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
I'll give you some names. So I have a book called The Geeky Bartender, which is, it's right at the front of my store, so maybe that's part of why I sell it. But it's kind of like fantasy inspired cocktails.
Okay.
And I sell a shit ton of that. I have a book called The True Crime Activity Book, which I sell a ton of, and that one's inexpensive, which is so people buy it as gifts fairly often. And
That would be fun, though. I could see how that could be fun to like kind of, try things out and just see what works.
And it's the same on the product side. If I bring in a new line of ornaments that I think are really going to get people going, and then they sell really well.
Yeah.
There's obviously stuff that I bring in that does not sell.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but that's, to me, that's kind of what makes the whole thing work, and it shows that I've got the intuition to to bring in what people are looking for. So.
Yeah. What is like, what's the hardest part of what you do?
Oh man, the hardest part is
like, I just feel like there's like in my, like from my point of view, I almost feel like it would be so overwhelming to try to sift through these hundreds of thousands of books.
yeah, I would say that is the hard part right now, is keeping everything organized in my brain and keeping things prioritized, and not losing hours looking at catalogs of things that I'm always, you talk about FOMO. I have the FOMO of not getting in a book that people are looking for until it's too late, and then and then nobody wants it anymore. But I think that's always going to happen, and that's part of why I'm relying more on my customers now to tell me. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but we were talking about like the books that I carry and how that has shifted as I become more aware of what my customers are looking for, which in turn strengthens that customer bond, so keeps people coming back, right? So I've got more of a careful eye now on romantasy stuff, on romance stuff, because I know that's what people are looking for. So if I'm getting the book in, I will nowadays, I'll try to post to social and say, hey, I'm getting this. So if you pre-ordered on Amazon, you can cancel that pre-order and you can pick it up at Woolly Bear instead. So
that's also just such another factor of being a business owner, as far as like you running that social media on top of all this stuff.
Yeah,
seems overwhelming.
I mean, I don't mind it. I've run at this point like 10 social media accounts at some point in my life for various businesses, for publishers, for who knows what, right? I had a Bookstagram at one point, a personal Instagram account, so I'm fairly comfortable doing it. But yeah, it does. It's always gnawing at the back of your mind, because now that it is the face of my business, I always think if I don't post today, people are going to forget that I'm open, or I'm going to get taken out of the algorithm.
It sucks.
Yeah. But I also feel pretty strongly about posting when I feel like it versus when I feel like I have to, because I think that comes through in your content. And I just don't want to become one of those people that, not to knock people who like schedule their content out, but if it gets to that point, at that point, I just don't think it's even worth posting, because it takes away from the energy of the business, And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, where I working for other people, I kind of felt like I couldn't say what I wanted to say. Social media is one of the best parts of my job now, because people understand that it's just me. And, Dagny and I talk about this all the time. It is a double-edged sword, because if we're anywhere on Main Street, people recognize us. And,
Celebs
and there's just no possibility of anonymity. I'm not a morning person, so sometimes that gets me into trouble, because I go into Dagny's shop, first stop, and usually there's somebody else in there, and sometimes they'll recognize me and say hi, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk right now, but they know I'm the bookstore guy, right? So, but that's a good problem to have, because that means people are watching and interacting with my content. So
yeah, that's cool. It's a fascinating thing to think about.
Yeah.
The whole in a whole of being a bookstore owner. So like, you approaching this new chapter of you moving into this next store, what are some of your goals?
So, the biggest thing right now is hiring people. So I actually have 2 interviews lined up tomorrow with folks who, one of whom just shopped at the store several times, and the last time she was in mentioned that she did not like her current job. And so the last time she was in, I just said, hey, like, I'm hiring. Like, do you want to consider working for me? And she was really into that idea. So we scheduled an interview. Somebody else has reached out to me through my website. So we're interviewing. I'm interviewing those two people tomorrow and looking to just build a team of people who can help me fill in those gaps where like I don't have the time or energy or focus. So, and there's got to be, I will definitely learn how to streamline my business, the more months I'm at this. So hopefully this stuff gets easier, but could really use some help with people just kind of deciding what to bring into the store. So if I have staff members who really like, mysteries and thrillers or really like romance, my goal is to give people responsibility and give people autonomy to build those sections. And hopefully, at the end of the month or at the end of the year, we can look at it and say like, hey, so your choices brought in this much additional revenue or like increased, we can go through section by section that way. So that's one of my goals eventually. But, in the more immediate future, I just want to hire a couple folks that can help me keep the shop open 7 days a week instead of 5 days a week. So we're gonna extend hours and hopefully start up some sort of events programs where we can have authors come in for author talks, every couple of weeks or so. So there's a lot of stuff that is in the works, and I'm just excited to get things off my plate so I can focus on kind of the big picture stuff, because we had a business meeting last week to talk about 2025 events for Main Street, which is mostly like the Carnegie Crawl at this point.
Yeah.
So I see myself taking a larger role in that and making sure that we are making it the best that it can be to entice people to come, because that's ultimately what brings all of us business on Main Street. So there's a lot to dig into, and I don't know. My mind is in a million places.
What about like an online, as far as like, do you sell stuff online?
Yeah.
Now, is that like a benefit, or is that just something that is like, like do you put that there? Like what's your thoughts on like selling online?
Is it a benefit in the sense that it's one more service I can offer people, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as like, are you trying to like market that towards like, people that are not in the area, or, how do you like approach that?
For me, I look at it as a way for people to see what's in the store without coming into the store.
That makes a lot of sense.
You can browse the website and say, oh, they have this book in stock, I'm going to stop in.
Okay.
Or you can buy it and then mark it for pickup and come to the store and pick it up.
Ah, I like that.
Or ship locally,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I do get people who ship, or I'll have people who are local but want to ship to family members out of state. Right? So
it's just another resource for people.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then when we look at pre-orders, like the new Hunger Games book that's coming out, those are through my website too.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's not where I make the majority of my money, but for me, it's like all the products have to go into my POS anyways. And then the POS just feeds through the website. So it's kind of like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not just do both?
You might think that these are like kind of like dumb questions.
No, I just get terrified that this stuff is not interesting. That's the only thing.
Now, do you think that so let me ask you a question. Whenever you came over here, what did you expect as far as a conversation? What did you think that we were going to talk about?
Well, I've listened to 2 of your podcasts. I listened to the Dagny one,
okay,
and I actually listened to the Montana Mitchell one because Montana was our favorite teacher at Yoga Flow.
Oh, you're Yoga Flow? You're a yogi?
When I lived in Shadyside, the studio was right down the street.
Amazing. Yeah. Thursday night, church?
Yeah, we went to that class every Thursday. Did you go to that class?
Yeah, we were there quite a few times. I'm a yogi. I don't go as much as I do, but my wife was just at yogi. She just started at a new spot in South Hills called Flow that is at South Hills Village now.
Wait, she started that?
No, she just started going there because Dara, who worked at another spot, opened up her own spot that is now at South Hills Village.
I feel like we'll cut this because we might talk about it for too long. But
no, that's all right. I really don't cut a lot. I think that what appeals to people who listen to my podcast is that we kind of get into, the weeds of everything. And, I don't spend a lot of stuff talking about we didn't spend a lot of time talking about random, yoga stuff,
Yeah.
but Montana was obviously a guest.
Just Amazon.
Yeah, just Amazon. But it's I don't know. My whole thing about starting this podcast is to provide a different type of product that other people don't. Often whenever you get a podcast, you get a refined, shined up piece of just fine-tuned, hard hour. People cut out the fluff. People cut out all that. I just never wanted that. I want a real organic conversation between two people because I'm genuinely fascinated. You saw I had no notebooks here.
Yeah.
The people that I invite in here, I am just honestly
you're good at facilitating the conversation.
Fascinated by it. Am
I doubting myself more than your average?
Yeah, there's no reason to doubt yourself. Yeah, because every person that comes in here.
I mean, like I said, I come from the world of putting myself on social media where the goal is to be entertaining. So if I talked about this I did a 7-minute video on gift cards, and I was like, nobody is gonna watch, or I'm gonna regret uploading this because it is so boring. But I just thought it was a really. Did you watch that video by chance?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good tidbit, so I want to say it, in brief. When you buy a gift card from a company or from a local business, that money does not go to the business until the card is redeemed. So, if you buy a gift card for Dagny's, third plug for Dagny's, that money does not go to Dagny until you go in, or whoever you're giving the gift card to, you go in and redeem it. So a lot of times I feel like if I had a Dagny's gift card, I would feel a little embarrassed redeeming it because I would feel like that money had already gone to our bottom line, and then I was just paying for services that had already been bought, if that makes sense. But the money, the cash flow is kind of the opposite situation. So the video that I posted a couple weeks ago is basically hey, I know you guys gave a lot of gift cards to people for Christmas, right? If you could help encourage them to come in and actually spend those gift cards, that money is actually going to go into my wallet now, as opposed to in December when you bought the gift cards.
My goodness.
None of that money showed up. Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of times people might think hey, I bought the gift card. I don't care if they use it because the money went to them already. But it's not.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
See, this is the benefit of us getting into the weeds and just talking about random shit.
Well, that's one of the interesting things that I discovered at my job that I thought I could share with people. But.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I never thought about that. Now, let me ask you, is there anything that you think that I didn't touch on as far as, you being a bookstore owner, or, anything that you would want to, kind of touch on before we get to the ending segment? I think you're a fascinating guy.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I don't,
I feel like it's.
I don't want to get an ego here.
What's what do you do for your downtime?
My downtime is horrible. Have you heard of bed rotting?
Yeah, I love it.
It's just,
big bed rotter.
It's just bed rotting now.
I'm a couch rotter though,
and I think I've been using starting a business as an excuse to prioritize my business and not my mental and physical health.
Yeah.
But I'm really not so busy that I can't get down to the yoga studio.
Yeah. Well, whenever you're not thinking about work, what do you do you still play video games, you said?
I do, not so much. I'm into the silliest video games right now. So I don't even
What do you play, Stardew, stuff like that?
No, I love Stardew, but no, I'm talking about Genshin Impact. Do you know what Genshin Impact is?
No.
Okay. Have you heard of gacha games?
Gacha games. What's that?
Gacha is a term for basically a game where you gamble on characters. So playing the game, you earn in-game currency that you convert to wishes, and then periodically they'll have limited run characters available. So you spend your wishes to get those characters, but it's a gambling system. So you might get them after one pull, one wish, or you might get them after
Wow.
a greater number of wishes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I kind of got sucked into it during COVID, and I just
What's the system you play on?
I play it on PlayStation, but it's
Okay.
very similar to some of the latest like Zelda games. So if you like to explore, there's a light combat, but it's not that intense.
Love that.
I'm playing a lot more of those because it is just easy to kind of like turn my brain off. And just go into that. So after I hire people, and I hate that I keep kicking this can down the road, but like after I hire people and like get the new store settled, I really need to scale back and actually start being productive in my downtime. The one thing that I really enjoy doing is gardening, which is kind of how I got interested in, environmental nonfiction. But obviously this time of year, there's not too much you can do with that. So once May hits, I'll hopefully spend more time outside in the garden.
All right. You think there's anything I forgot talking about the store? Probably a million things.
Probably a million things, but I mean, I think those are the broad strokes. I really, probably goes without saying, but like, I really couldn't be where I'm at without the support of the community. I think Carnegie has a really strong, a really strong understanding of local business. And I know on Main Street, from Dagny bringing over a box of apple cider donuts on my opening day to, the business meeting we had last week where, everyone's like exchanging ideas and talking about how we can improve things together.
Love that.
That's what has allowed me to get to where I'm at. So,
well, that's
I
good.
feel like I made the right call. Yeah.
That's good. I'm excited for the new store. April 28th?
April 26th. It's
26th,
actually, it's Independent Bookstore Day.
Okay.
So pretty good,
Nice.
pretty good tie in there, huh?
All right, yeah, good tie-in. Okay, so the ending segment that I do with everyone is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions. I'm happy you listened to the Montana episode.
Yes.
It's good.
And
Montana.
well, Dagny did that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
And even though I thought about it, I still don't have answers to any of these things.
That's all right. That's all right. I ask everyone these, and people who listen to all these episodes, they're like, yeah, I didn't even think about this.
I don't want to answer the one about albums.
Oh, that's all right. You got to answer all of them. Sally Wiggin answered all these fucking questions. So
Montana didn't. You asked, do you read? And she said no.
Well, I give you auxiliary questions. Okay, so ending segments, whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category is movies. So if you had to pick 3 movies, what would they be?
I know this came up in Montana's episode.
Couldn't even imagine.
I would probably say it anyway. Lizzie McGuire movie.
Loved it. First date I ever went on. Held a girl's hand for the first time to the Lizzie McGuire movie.
That didn't happen to me, but it's still very special to me. Second movie, I'd probably say Cabin in the Woods.
That's a great one.
I know if you're a horror fan, that's probably a pretty obvious one, but I just loved watching it for the first time. Like, I wish I could have that back again.
You're like, what the hell's going on?
Right. And I love sharing that with friends now. And just, I had a friend watch it for the first time a couple years ago, and they were just like, thanks so much. Like, he literally thanked me for sharing that movie with
Yeah, it's
them.
fun. Are you a horror person?
Yeah.
Did you read any Stephen King?
Not so much, actually. It's
interesting.
I think the one book of his that I actually read was 11/22/63, which is not horror.
It's amazing, though.
I thought it was boring.
Oh my goodness! Ain't that so interesting though? If you go on Reddit and you see all these posts, and you'll see everyone at the top of the mountaintops saying one book, and then you have some of the people comment, it's like, this is trash, this is boring, and then you have people championing the other books that no one really talks about. That's what I love about it all. But I enjoyed it pretty much.
Third movie, I guess I'd have to say something like You've Got Mail.
Oh, incredible. FOX.
Because I actually really hated that movie when I first saw it, but it's a movie I can't stop thinking about. And obviously thematically now it's very relevant to what I'm doing. So
yeah.
I feel like it's grown more important to me. But I remember watching that movie and just being so mad that her store closed at the end.
Yeah.
But the movie doesn't want you to be mad at the end. I was so confused about what they wanted me to feel.
Yeah.
And I'll still watch it and I'll be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel.
Late 90s, early 2000s, there was no rules. Weird ass stuff happened.
Yeah, but
that was a good movie.
It is good. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, good movie. Okay, second category, 3 books.
Yeah, so books, I would say, all right, let's get the boring one out of the way. I would probably say Bringing Nature Home is a book that I think has the power to change a ton of people's perspectives on their backyards, essentially. So you were talking about how you and your wife went to the observatory, right?
Yep.
And they were talking about light pollution and how it affects urban wildlife. And you were like, whoa, we had no idea. But now that we know, our eyes have been open. Like, we're into this, right? I feel like this book by Doug Tallamy kind of does the same thing for lawns and gardens, and backyards. It talks about why invasives are just non-productive for the environment, why they're not as nutritious for local wildlife, why it's bad to spread invasive seeds and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of goes through, it sets up basically why we're all doing it wrong and then why it's important to do it the right way. And I think the message is very powerful there because it's kind of the same when we talk about bringing down big corporations, or not bringing them down per se, but just making them less of a thing in our lives.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us feel like we don't have power to change things now. And the book is kind of saying, like, if you make an effort to plant, like you live next to some woods here, right? Mm-hmm. So if you made the effort to plant natives, I don't know if you have already. I don't know if is this on your radar yet?
No.
Native plants. Okay. Well, read that book, and then maybe it'll convince you why you should plant native flowers and shrubs.
Bringing Nature Home, Doug Tallamy.
Bringing Nature Home, yeah. And then, but the point is, like, if you do it and then your neighbor does it and then their neighbor does it, you're creating like a wildlife corridor where native wildlife can thrive again. So even if you live on a 1/10 of an acre or, a 1/5 of an acre, if everybody does their small part, shrinks their lawn, all that kind of stuff, we can all make a huge change. And obviously there's a lot that gets tied up in all that. So it's a huge conversation, and that's why I have a whole bookshelf devoted to it. And
I like that.
Probably a whole bookcase in the new store, and I want to have people come in and talk about it. Because there's, you talk about like deer overpopulation. Anyway, I could go on all day. Urban, light pollution ties into it for sure as well. And
it was mind blowing listening to that because it's like stuff that people would just never even like take into consideration.
And they were talking about migrating birds, right? And then
it affected everything with the migrating birds from the leaves on the tree. It was so crazy to hear about it from an educated person who could talk about it in a way that would, kind of enlighten people that just would never think about it.
Right.
It's pretty fascinating.
All right. So that's book number 1. Oh my God. I feel like, I told you I thought about books on the way here. Okay. Have you read anything by Stephen Graham Jones?
What are some of the ones that he...
So I've only read one of his. It was called The Only Good Indians.
Okay.
But he's also written My Heart is a Chainsaw.
Yeah. Okay. I know of it. I have not read him.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're reading Grady Hendrix, I think you'd enjoy him too. The Only Good Indians was a book about these 4 Native American guys who are hunting and basically like they end up in a scenario that haunts them for the rest of their lives. And some of them try to remove themselves from their heritage because of what happened, and some of them are still like entrenched in that. And it's gross. It's a gross book.
That's right.
It's like straight up horror, but it also has themes of like, identity and this heritage and like
it always pops up.
Unknowability of nature and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. You should read it and tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
But I really like that one because I read it in my book club. I'm in a book club with 4 women, and we read a bunch of random stuff, but that was like one of the only ones that we read and like we all had strong feelings about it, and I think we all liked it.
What's your favorite book from your childhood?
I would probably say The Phantom Tollbooth is the one that I'll never stop thinking about.
Okay.
I don't know if you know anything about that.
I know nothing about it. What's the premise?
You should really read it. So it's a portal fantasy, which means it's basically like Alice in Wonderland or Chronicles of Narnia.
Love it.
Kid
right
goes
up my
through
alleyway.
a doorway into a weird dimension. He ends up in a place where, I mean, I don't know, lots of weird things happen. Like there's a town made out of words, I think. There's like a town made out of numbers.
Okay.
And in between there's all this like weird sound and music related stuff. It's a very quick read. But it was, yeah, I don't know.
I'll read it.
It's a classic for a reason.
Okay.
I would say.
That's a good answer. All right, now your most favorite question. What are the 3 albums?
I can't skip this one?
No, come on, just humor me.
You let certain guests skip
Come
these
on.
questions.
Humor me. What's the first CD you ever bought? Lizzie McGuire.
No, I'm not that young. No, I think it was Spice Girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Loved it.
What's the question? My favorite albums?
No, you get 3 albums. Any albums you want. You're just stuck on a desert island like Tom Hanks.
It's not going to be the Spice Girls.
Well, I would hope.
Okay, well, it could be.
It could be, but it's like
choice.
I would feel like I love it, but I feel like
You'd get sick of it.
I would get a little bit sick of it. I mean, I would want like a little bit more depth to the album.
I would say, okay, here's an answer. So when I was in New York, I got really into this band or this guy. I'm always confused about if it's a guy or if it's a band because he's got band members.
Okay,
but it's just the guy who's the face of the band.
What's the name?
Does this not happen to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Roosevelt is the name of the guy or the band.
Okay.
He does like electro pop is how you'd say it, but it's very synth driven, and then he kind of like sings over it in this like dreamy way.
Okay.
But it's one of those albums where the whole point of me, if I'm listening to an album, is that the songs blend, right? And so he will actually transition songs between tracks, right?
Okay.
So he is one person that kind of just like stuck with me. And is also, how music brings you back to a certain time in your life.
Absolutely.
Like that will always be New York for me. There's also, okay, here's another one. There's also a video game called Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Never heard of it.
Is that not a yes, I know it? No, it's a never heard of it. Okay. You should really get into the video games have gotten so like incredible.
I know, that's why I want to get a Switch, just simply because of like some of the games that have come out.
Yeah.
There's one that I seen on Reddit called like The Longest Dark or something like that. It's basically a survival game.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's like Elder Ring. I'm into like
Elden Ring,
whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about. I like stuff like that, but I feel like that if I literally had this conversation with a buddy of mine, I feel like it'll take away from my reading, because for me to be able to read as many books to me that I'm reading now is something that I want to like kind of keep up. And I feel like any downtime that I have, if I'm not like, just enjoying time with my wife or my dog, reading is like a way for me to, I just want to keep it reading. And I'll probably burn that out eventually. But if I had a Switch, it would be bad news.
Yeah.
Be bad news probably.
Yeah.
I'd get crazy on Oregon Trail.
What?
Oregon Trail? Oregon Trail, the game Oregon Trail?
Yeah, that's what you're excited to play?
I mean, games like that, yeah.
Oh.
Those are what like you going. It's like, but I know that there's so many other games. You're like, come on, Oregon Trail. I know.
So Sayonara Wild Hearts is it's kind of like a music beats like Guitar Hero, but you're kind of playing as the character.
Okay.
And the soundtrack, so every level is a song where somebody's like singing, and then your character is doing things that are timed with the beats. And it's almost like a journey through this person's like subconscious, and she's kind of like on this path of discovery.
Okay.
It's probably like an hour and a half, like a length of an album, right?
Okay.
So it's not that long of a game. But I played it through entirely in one go, and I was just like obsessed with it. It was so, and it's kind of like this electro, like pop.
Sayonara Wild Hearts.
It's very easy to listen to.
That's one of your choices of what you'd listen to?
Yeah, because it was, back in New York, it was like the thing that I would listen to on walks, and I would just like,
okay.
Because I listen to it so often, I can tune it out, which to me is kind of the strength of a good album is you're not paying too much attention to it.
That's a good answer.
Maybe you can't do that with the Spice Girls. And the third album, I guess I would say Angus and Julia Stone. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
I don't think I have.
Okay, they're like I guess they're more like a folk duo.
Okay.
They're brother and sister. They're from Australia. They were introduced to me when I was in college, and I went to their concert with a friend. And like, I'm not a huge concert guy, but that was like one of the best concerts I've been to. I like the more quiet, intimate, like songwriter type things.
Angus and Julia Stone?
Angus and Julia Stone, yeah. So Ben Howard opened for them at the concert, and then they went on stage, and I didn't have any of their albums at that point, but afterwards I was like, I need to pick this up. So
okay.
Like they have one song that goes on for like 7 minutes, and I just feel like it's very easy to listen to. So.
Okay, those are great answers.
Yeah.
Before we get into the last few, what's the best concert you've ever been to? Is it that one?
I mean, it probably is, and there are probably concerts that I can't remember right now. I'll tell you, my first concert was the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, how was it?
It was awesome. I mean, I was a senior in high school, and I went with some friends from school, and we like hand painted shirts with the Jonas Brothers logo on it.
Wait, your first concert was a senior in high school?
Yeah.
Never been to one before that?
No, I told you it wasn't really my thing.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it's interesting to hear that. My first concert, I was probably in 3rd grade. It was Weird Al Yankovic. Very good.
Who took you? Like, why?
My cousin. My cousin Sam, who is 7 years older than me. She is one of the tech leads on Escape from Gringotts in Universal Studios.
Oh.
So whenever we went down there, got to go in the back way and got to ride these rides, and like went through Diagon Alley. And
cool.
She's like a big Harry Potter fan.
Okay.
And that's who I've been texting back and forth as I'm finishing these books, because I'm like, I can't believe I never read these. But
well, I didn't have cool people like that in my
that's
life.
all right. That's fine.
I mean, I'm sure my parents took me to like jazz concerts or something like that.
That's probably awesome too. Jonas Brothers would be a good one to see, though. It's like I see all their stuff on TikTok now, and obviously they're older now, but it's like
I'm not into them anymore, but at the time I was pretty obsessed.
Okay,
so,
that's good.
But it was kind of the first time I felt like I drove myself there and felt like an adult. So it kind of has like that attachment.
I love it. Okay, third to last question is the death row meal. So the death row meal, you get to before you get put to death, you get an appetizer and a main course and a dessert. What would they be?
How quickly am I put to death after the meal? Was actually a question I had for you.
It's like
like immediately.
Well, yeah, it's like kind of like if you were in prison and you're about to get put to death, they give you your last meal, and probably like a couple hours after.
Because I don't want to deal with acid reflux.
Yeah.
Okay. That won't be an
quick
issue.
enough that won't be an issue.
Okay.
Do you have dietary restrictions?
No, I'm gonna eat a lot of meat at this meal.
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't normally do that. I don't want to get the meat sweats.
Okay, yeah. It's a real thing.
I think you're a tartare guy, are you not?
Oh yeah, we just had another one.
I feel like you
last
saw
night.
it. Okay, yeah, I saw it in your stories recently.
Unreal.
Maybe I'm just mentioning things that I've been very in your world recently because I've like been leading up to this.
Were you apprehensive about coming on here?
No, not really.
Okay, good. I was just curious. I'd like to know if I come off as a psychopath or something online.
No, I just kind of have this drive because I want to make myself palatable. I just have this drive to be interesting or, entertaining. So you're telling me to compartmentalize that basically.
No, that's all right. I'm just on. I have so many hours of me just talking to people. I just had to just deal with myself. And
well, most podcasts I listen to are, I mean, I will obviously be listening to yours going forward, but most podcasts I listen to are like loud noises, quick cuts, all this kind of stuff.
I ain't into that.
Okay, that's fine.
March by the beat of my own drum.
And I respect you for that.
All right, what's your appetizer?
I would say steak tartare from I don't care where, as long as it's cooked well. It's got that little egg on top.
Cooked well. It's raw meat.
Oh yeah, you're right. What am I saying? As long as it's prepared.
Yeah,
well.
prepared well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some good stuff around here. There's some good ones.
I don't think I've had a good tartare around here.
Oh, you ain't been around a good.
You got some at Hemlock House.
I got some at Hemlock House.
Okay.
It was good. It wasn't like there's other that I would pick over that because that's a different take. That's more of like an Asian style take to it.
Yeah.
Where I like more of like a, maybe like a
Traditional,
caper.
like French.
Yeah. Which is,
Do they all have the egg on top, or is that more of a French thing?
I think that they all pretty much do. This one had like more of like a jammy type of egg, which was great, but it was just like a different one. I like more of a traditional one.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the appetizer. And again, I don't really care where it's from. Entree, I'd say, I thought about this, and I'd have to say there was this restaurant in my hometown that was kind of like the only fancy restaurant in my hometown. And they opened up, and my parents would take us there, like, for celebrations or whatever, and I would always get prime rib. And it's like one of the only places I've ever had prime rib, because the meat was just like out of this world. And It was like, I cannot describe what that flavor did to me when I first experienced it. And
prime rib.
Not to mention that it comes with like the au jus on the side.
Yeah.
And they had homemade potato chips that they served with it. And the whole, like, all together, it was just...
love it.
It was incredible. And I guess we're going to dessert,
Yeah.
right? I'd have to say like a huge slice of New York style cheesecake with probably cherries on top.
Okay. It's interesting how many people pick cheesecake as a dessert.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people. That's definitely the most chose dessert.
So I was gonna go with tiramisu.
That's probably second. I mean,
So I was gonna go.
They're
with
good. I mean,
creme brulee. I don't know. I feel like people pick that too.
No one pick that. I mean, like, people pick that, but not as much as you would think. I love a creme brulee.
There aren't that many desserts out there. It's not like entrees.
Oh, there's a lot of desserts.
No, there aren't a lot of commonly eaten desserts.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that.
Okay.
What are some places you like to eat around here? Any restaurants that stand out?
We went to High Hold for the first time.
Yeah, never been there. I've heard about it though.
I was seeing it on TikTok everywhere, and I was like, we got to check it out. We went there for Christmas dinner, and it was not on Christmas, but leading up to it. It was really, really good. It was more, for me, it was more about the experience than the actual food. Like, we weren't blown away. I don't want to badmouth anyone on here.
No, but I feel like that's like a novelty meal. Whenever I ask you that question, I mean, like, a place that you frequent around here, like, more often than like a special occasion.
Okay. I mean, I was kind of I can only think of special occasion restaurants.
Oh, okay.
I'm really into Churchview Farm.
Yeah.
Have you
had
been
her
up
on
there?
here?
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had Tara
nice.
on here.
Well, you've had everyone on here.
I've had a lot of people. You're over, I think you're episode like 302.
Oh.
I've had a lot of people on here. I mean, a lot of people that come in that are like, is this going to be interesting? I get into the weeds with everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to go back and look in the phone book. There's a lot of names that you'll probably see that you realize.
That's about 600 hours of listening there. So.
I'm not saying all of them, but just pick and choose on some of the good ones. Interesting stuff.
I'm really into Churchview Farm.
I've never got to have dinner there though.
Oh, it is like, it depends on who they have.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, who was the chef that you did?
I don't remember who the chef was, but it was Italian.
Okay.
Like, it was an Italian themed meal with wine pairings and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. We're going back this June, I think, but it's like a picnic dinner, so it'll be a little more casual.
Okay.
Millie's is going to be there. I think Hitchhiker Brewing
had both of them people on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And am I the first bookstore though that you've had?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I've tried to get a couple others.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you tried to get.
Don't give me no. They don't give me no time.
I can reach out to Jamie for you.
I mean, go ahead. I've tried.
Okay.
We'll see. But
who else have you reached out to?
White Whale.
Okay.
That's a bookstore that I liked. I also reached out to.
I'd be surprised if you hadn't reached out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I like their vibe. I like the coffee in there as well. I like I like that vibe, and that was pretty much it. Jamie from Beyond Bedtime. That was the first one I reached out to, just because I loved it. She has an insane selection of Stephen King books.
Yeah,
and I just love the whole idea of just
All right. Well, I'll try to make it happen.
Yeah, maybe now that she sees another bookstores on here, you might give me the time to come over and do it.
Well, she and I are chatting because we're planning a bookstore crawl for May.
I saw.
Yeah, you saw. You're up to that. Yeah.
I'm in.
I think it's going to be a pretty big deal. There, as far as I know, there has not been one.
What does that entail?
So we're basically designing a passport that people can pick up at any of the participating stores. You would take that to every store that you visit, get a stamp. I mean, we're discussing whether people would have to purchase at each store. I'm leaning towards no, but we'll see where that lands. And then, after you visit the stores, you get a certain number of stamps, you enter to win a prize.
Okay, I like that.
But the idea is just to get people out there and get all these stores on their radar, because a lot of people know White Whale and they're great, but there's
those are like the big names.
There's stuff in the North Hills, there's stuff in the South Hills.
Now, let me ask you this. As far as this is kind of reverting back to the regular bookstore conversation, whenever you talk to your customer base, is it kind of like, that person has their store and they kind of frequent their store? Or do you get people that are like, oh, yeah, I go to all these different bookstores and try to go to different places?
I think there's probably a mix. I mean, I get people that come in once and never come back. So that's one segment. Not because they didn't like it, but just because they're like, that was a nice one-off experience.
Yeah.
I get people that say it's nice to have a store out here now that can be my go-to, so I don't have to go all the way to the city.
Yeah.
And then I get people who I know frequent every store they can because they want to make sure their dollars go to all the different businesses.
It's cool to think about.
Yeah.
So May, the bookstore crawl, we'll have to, you let me know whenever that gets kind of hashed out.
May 10th through 18th are the dates. I know that much.
Okay.
So.
We'll put my name in her ear. Now, back to we were talking about restaurants.
Oh, I was trying to deflect because I couldn't think of anything.
That's all right. You don't have to think of anything.
I'm a foodie for sure. I mean, I just don't want to be a cliche, but I feel like Fat Fisk is my favorite restaurant right now.
I'm right up there. That's incredible.
But they're like,
it's incredible.
I would say Fat Fisk and Aptika are.
I have not been there yet.
Yeah.
I got to get to Aptika. But Fat Fisk is absolutely sensational.
I went to their pop-ups before because they had a few pop-ups in Bloomfield. And I was like, this is
dude's legit. I reached out to him a couple times. Tried to get him on here.
I'm not talking to him on Instagram.
No, that's all right. So, okay. That's all right.
He's very high profile now. So,
well, to be fair, I did it before he was high profile, but now that he's high profile,
well, he's probably busy getting his restaurant set up.
Yeah, so. Well, this was before that.
I'm sure that happens to you a lot.
Oh yeah, I don't take no offense to it all. Some people are into it, some people ain't.
Yeah.
But
I feel like. Given time, I could think of something else.
Yeah, we just like that Hemlock House was good. We went there. We went to Itame Sushi. I don't know if you're a sushi person.
I am. Yeah. Is that where Coven used to be?
No, it's right across from Hitchhiker in Mount Lebanon.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a sushi place. He's going to come on and talk here soon, but it was amazing.
Nice.
Really was. And I feel like it's a hidden gem. It's like a nice little spot. They do great work. It's like Thai and Japanese cuisine.
Okay.
Very, very good, though.
Okay. Have you been to Pusides?
I was just going to say, that's that's like probably my go-to in the city.
I mean, I'm listing the top restaurants in the city, so it's not like a...
Yeah, I mean, you can't...
You're not going to find anything new listening to this.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I got a reservation coming up. My wife doesn't know we're going, but
nice.
Yeah, we go all the time. There's a lot of good places in the city. Really, really a lot of good people that just do great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, second to last question.
Yeah.
If you're going on a road trip, you go into a gas station, get a snack. What's your snack of choice?
I don't know. Combos is...
I swear to God, I was going to say, you probably are going to pick combos. The most chosen on here.
Is combos.
Ain't that surprising?
I don't like to hear that I'm like other people, so...
No, it's not even like that. It's like, but it's so surprising that so many people enjoy combos because, like, I just wrote them off for like 2 decades.
They're more of a meal than a regular snack because they have a filling and they always taste like pizza or something weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's a good answer. And
it feels like something you wouldn't eat in your everyday life, which is the whole point of a gas station snack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Okay. I'd say the second probably most picked is like...
I would never get candy at a gas station.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not a candy person?
Not on a road trip, no.
Okay.
Like movie theaters are the only place for candy.
What's your candy?
I like sour gummies or like Sour Patch Kids, peach rings.
You're a sour person, gummy.
Skittles, though, I'll also have.
Skittles. I haven't had a Skittle in years.
Yeah, sour Skittles were, but I burn the roof of my mouth.
Have you ever had the
several times
Nerds
on
gummy
those.
clusters?
No, and I don't get why people are. I mean, I guess if I'd had them, I would know why everyone's obsessed with them. But
They're good. They're dangerous. You get like 6 of them. It's like 50 grams of sugar.
Oh.
The guy that I just had on last, he was talking about, he loves sour stuff. He was like, I'll eat it until it burns my mouth.
Yeah.
But okay, that's good answers. Last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I'd love to talk to J.K. Rowling. Just like ask her what's going on.
Yeah. What's up with you?
What's up?
What's up with you?
I don't know. I think it definitely wouldn't be anyone I'm related to.
Yeah. If you would have picked a loved one, I would have said, someone that you're not directly related to.
I can't think of anybody famous who's dead that I'd want to talk to.
Could be alive too.
I don't know. I feel like in this scenario, I would want to pick somebody that I could have a candid conversation and be with. And
J.K. Rowling's it's not a bad choice. I've had people that
well, usually people answer with people that they feel like they didn't have enough time with, or like they want to get.
Anthony Bourdain is the most chosen on here.
Okay, I would not pick Anthony Bourdain.
That's understandable, but people also pick people that they're not necessarily fans of, and
Hillary Duff.
That would be a great. Can you imagine that conversation?
Actually, I might pick Sarah Bareilles.
Great too.
Yeah. My boyfriend is obsessed with, I've mentioned, he's obsessed with her.
Yeah, randomly, we were coming back from a vacation last weekend, and it was just popping up on my playlist, and we were just listening to it. If you go on that DJ on like Spotify, you got like DJ X. Okay. It's like, I got a song coming up for you by Sarah Bareilles, and my wife was just laughing.
I know she's a great person from what I've seen on social media, and I just think she's I don't know if you've seen Waitress before. Mm-mm. Okay, are you like at all interested in musicals?
Yeah.
Okay, you should watch Waitress. The Broadway recording is on HBO Max now. So
okay,
you should check it out. But
I will.
You watch something like that, and you're like, wow, you're so incredibly talented.
Yeah. I find talent through pretty much everyone. It's pretty incredible.
But some more than others.
Yeah, understandable. But people are incredible.
Like Sarah is more talented than Hillary Duff.
Yeah, but even as far as like talking about guests on here that you might not think would be like sought after guests. Like I talked to a guy that just I wanted to talk to someone who dug graves, so I just found someone who just dug graves in a cemetery and talked to them, and it was a fascinating conversation. Pretty interesting.
Okay.
You think there's anything else that I'm missing? I think how did you think that this went?
I mean, it went quicker than I thought it would go, for sure.
2 hours and 20 minutes.
I know you typically go for 2 hours, so 2 hours 20. I think I beat Montana.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
That was my goal.
Well, I appreciate you coming over and talking to me about all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. It really is to, I was curious to have you come in and like kind of learn about it, especially because like, I'm like a new reader. So I'm pretty fascinated by the whole world of it, and that I spent so many times, straying away from it. Mm-hmm. But, I enjoy it. I enjoyed listening to hear about, kind of how you got to where you are, and it'll be interesting to see what you take, the space you take, and how you, how you go about it.
Am I one of the youngest businesses that you've had on here? Would you say 4 months?
I would say, probably around there.
Okay.
Probably around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's revisit it in a couple years and see how it is.
Yeah. I hope I'm doing this well a year from now.
Yeah.
But, it's an exciting time. So.
Well, take a second, tell people where they could find your work, where your spot is, when the new one's open, and the whole deal.
Yeah. So my store is called Woolly Bear Books and Gifts. We're currently at 117 East Main Street in Carnegie, moving to 31 East Main Street. Still in Carnegie, close to Carnegie Coffee Company. You can find me on Instagram at Woolly Bear Books. It's WOOLL. Make sure you spell it right, or it won't pop up. I'm learning it's a very hard word for people to spell, so kind of regretting that choice, but we are where we are. I think that's all people need to know. The website, same name, Woolly Bear Books. Find me one of those places.
When's the new spot open?
April 26th,
April
Independent
26th.
Bookstore Day.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate you as usual. Each and every week, we're back with another great guest doing great things for the city. Thank you for listening. Call you right back.